Knowing who to tip, how much to tip, and when you should tip is one of the most stressful parts of traveling. Tipping customs vary greatly depending on where in the world you're traveling to, and most of us want to thank the right people for great service. However, we also don't want to pay double for service charges already included in our bill, or inadvertently insult someone in a foreign country. So in today's video, I'm going to give you a complete guide to how you should tip while traveling. Let's go.
Dream vacations start here.
So I want to start by giving you a general guideline about how other countries view tipping. Australia, for example, does not have a tipping culture, and it'll actually make the people you're giving a tip to a bit uncomfortable if you were to do it. China does not have a tipping culture either, and in Japan, it's actually frowned upon. If you're traveling to Africa, it can be a little complicated, but if you're going there for a safari or staying at an urban property in a major city, it would be okay for you to tip. In Central and South America, leaving small change in the local currency is greatly appreciated. When visiting most of Europe, touristy areas in Mexico, the Caribbean, Canada, the US, India, and the Middle East, tipping is customary, and you should distribute tips when visiting those countries. Now, if you're not sure what is customary for the country you're visiting, feel free to ask around or do some research ahead of time. Now that we have established which countries have customary tipping, let's talk about who and when you should be tipping and how much to tip. Let's start with hotels. Tipping at hotels can be dependent on the room rate, the level of service, and the details of your stay. However, you also have to consider the changes that have been created since the pandemic. Housekeepers, for example, may have much more extensive cleaning regimens, even though they may not touch your room during your stay. Also, short-staffed hotels may add more responsibilities to already overworked employees. So here's a tipping guideline for hotels. Housekeeping. You should plan to tip $2 to $5 per night. If you're getting your room cleaned every day, then tip daily, as the same person may not clean your room each day. Also consider how you're leaving your room. If you're leaving it trashed, then consider tipping more. However, you should be on the lookout for hidden housekeeping charges, sometimes up to $40 per day. In these cases, a gratuity is not expected. For bellhops or luggage attendants, tip $2 to $5 per bag, and you should tip them when your bag is dropped off in your room. Car valets should be given $2 to $5 when dropping off and picking up your car. Concierge, $10 to $50 depending on the service provided, and you should tip them after the concierge helps you, or at the end of your stay. The doorman, you should give $1 to $2 for hailing a cab, and you should tip them immediately. For the front desk clerk, it's not necessary to tip them, but a $5 to $20 tip could score you an upgrade, and you should do this at the time of check-in. For room service, you should tip 15 to 20% when the food is delivered. And if you have a butler service, you should tip 5% of the nightly room rate, and you should do this at the end of your stay. Let's move on to transportation. Here's how much to pay everyone who helps you get to where you need to go. Curbside baggage check, $1 to $2 per bag, and tip when handing over your bags. Wheelchair attendants, $3 to $5 and tip when the attendant is leaving. Airport shuttle driver, $2 to $5 and tip at the end of the ride. Taxi, Lyft, and Uber drivers, 15 to 20% at the end of the ride. What about tipping flight attendants and airport employees? Well, actually, they're not allowed to accept tips, and the reason for that is that if they were to accept tips, labor laws would allow their employers to pay sub-minimum wages if the employees are assumed to be receiving gratuities on a regular basis. So don't be insulted if flight attendants refuse your tips. A better way to show your appreciation would be to leave a positive comment online. This may have a more positive impact for them rather than leaving a monetary tip. Moving on to restaurants. Tipping at restaurants can be really confusing. For instance, do you have to tip if there's already a kitchen appreciation fee? The answer is yes, because that fee goes towards non-tip workers in the kitchen. So you still need to tip the waitstaff. Here's what to tip them. 20% at the end of the meal, and for the bartender, $1 per beer and $2 per cocktail, either after every drink or when you pay your bill. If you're doing a tour, most companies will offer guidelines for tipping that they will share with you. However, here's a general guideline for tipping. Your tour guide should be tipped 10 to 20% of the total cost of the tour and should be paid at the end of the tour. For the tour bus driver, you should pay $5 to $10 per person, also at the end of the tour. What about an all-inclusive vacation? Most traditional all-inclusive resorts include gratuity. If gratuities are not included, you can follow the same basic hotel guidelines. $2 per bag for the bellhop, $2 to $5 per day for housekeeping, nothing extra for room service, as it's included on your bill, and a sliding scale for concierge services depending on the difficulty of the task. You also want to look at the daily resort fees to see what is included in those fees. If it goes towards gratuities, then you know not to leave a tip unless you want to give more. Let's now talk about cruises. Most cruise lines give you the option to prepay your gratuities at a set amount per person. This is probably the best way and what I would recommend you do, just because you won't have to worry about it or forget to do so. Now, if you want to give more than the amount of gratuity that you prepaid for to a certain staff member on your cruise who went above and beyond, then by all means, give them extra at the end of your cruise to show your appreciation. If you choose not to prepay your gratuities ahead of time, most cruise lines will automatically add about $15 to $25 per person per day to your onboard bill at the end of your trip to cover tips. These gratuities go into a pool that is split between the people you would typically tip, like the waiters and housekeeping staff, and this is designed to replace cash tipping and relieve guests of the obligation or worry about when and where to present gratuities. And if you do get someone on your cruise that made your trip extra special, whether that was your waiter or housekeeping staff, be sure to tell guest relations about it and provide their name. It can have a big impact on that person's salary than a small gratuity, but they'll be happy to receive that as well. Well, I hope this guide was helpful to you, and let me know what your thoughts are about tipping down in the comments below, and be sure to check out some of my other videos that may be helpful to you as well. Thank you so much for watching this one, and hope to catch you again in a future video.